Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Hi, everyone. Before we get started with the conversation, I just wanted to let you know this episode is coming out a little bit early because Marsha and I are going to be at the Black Sheep Gathering in Eugene, Oregon. And we would love to meet with listeners if any of you are going to be there. And we wanted to let you know where we're going to be so you can find us. So we'll be at the Wool Judging on Friday and Saturday. That's June 23rd and 24th. And then at the close of the judging on Saturday, there will be a wool sale. And that will be at 2 o'clock on Saturday. And then what we'd like to do is have a little bit of a meetup if anybody is interested. The market closes at 5, and right outside the market building, they have a no-host bar prior to a potluck. And Marsha and I are going to be in that area where the no-host bar is probably from around 5 o'clock until maybe 6 or 6:30. I don't think we're planning to be at the potluck. I think we'll be planning to find some place to go for dinner. And anyone who's there at that time who wants to join us should, just come and say hi. And we look forward to seeing some of the people that we met last year and maybe some new people too. So hope to see you at the Black Sheep Gathering this coming weekend.
Welcome home, Kelly.
Thanks, Marsha. It's good to be home.
Yes, I'm sure it is. 2 weeks.
It was long. It was a long trip, but it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Okay. So we'll talk about that later, though.
Yeah. Should we talk about projects first and then move on to the trip?
Yeah. What have you been working on?
Well, I finished I'm saying finished with a question mark. The Church Mouse Yarns and Tees Easy Folded Poncho. I finished all the knitting. I followed the instructions where you block it, you wash and block it first, and then you sew it together. I did all of that. And then my plan was to put the cowl neck on, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do it now. So I'm considering it sort of done. So sort of done so that I can wear it to the Black Sheep Gathering. And then when I'm down there, you can take a look at it, and I can get some opinions from people if I should add the cowl or not.
Okay.
So anyway, it's done. Now I have to laugh because you remember I was knitting and knit. Of course, it's just a stockinette rectangle, and I was knitting and knitting and knitting, and I had to get to 50 inches, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I've knit 54 inches. So funny. Anyway, the finished dimensions are supposed to be 20 inches by 50 inches, and mine blocked out to 24 inches by 56 inches.
And did that work okay with the fit?
Yeah, it seems fine. I mean, unlike a sweater where you have to worry more about fit, the poncho, I think, ponchos are a lot more forgiving, I think. But anyway,
well, and
so
you sew up, like you fold it in half, and then you just sew up part of the folded part, right? So it's not like that made the neck hole too big or...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you fold it in half, so now it's supposed to be what? If my dimensions had been according to the pattern, it would have been the unfolded piece would be 20 by 50 inches. You fold it in half, so now it becomes 20 by 25 inches.
Okay.
And then that 25-inch long selvage edge, you sew it up so you leave a 12-inch hole for the neck.
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't make any difference, I don't think, in terms of fit.
Well, good. I'm glad you're finished.
The only thing about it, though, is it's I saw one of these ponchos. The last episode I talked about going on the yarn tour And I saw one of these ponchos at one of the stores now. Shoot, I can't remember. Oh, it was at Wild Fiber up in Mount Vernon. And it was made out of the silky wool that I'm using.
Oh.
It felt really soft. And my little swatch that I made feels really soft after I washed it. But the finished poncho doesn't feel as soft. And I don't know if I need to wash it again. I mean, I can't imagine that would make any difference.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Did you wash it the same way? The swatch and the poncho?
The only difference, I think the swatch, I don't think I used any soap. Or if I did use soap, I just put a little, Dawn in there. The poncho, the finished poncho, I used the... what's that wool wash stuff? It starts with an E. Eucalyptus? Yeah, I use that.
Huh. Maybe it, because that's the stuff that you don't rinse.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't ever use I always like to rinse things. So I don't ever use those wool washes. But they're supposed to be, some people even say they make them softer. Kind of like a conditioner that you put in your hair, but...
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I don't know. It's interesting. So anyway, I'll bring it to Black Sheep and I can get opinions.
Cool. I look forward to seeing it.
So I finished that and I cast on for another project. And I'm doing isn't it called number 220? In fact, I don't remember if I talked about this before.
I don't think you did.
Okay. It's the pattern is number 221 Summer Cardigan by Diane Susie. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
And I'm using the Queensland Baby Llama Cotton Blend that we bought when you came up in January. And in fact, I'm knitting on it right now. And I have finished. It's a top-down raglan sleeve cardigan. The pattern has with short sleeves. That would come down just sort of over the top of your shoulder. And I'm going to probably make 3/4 length sleeves because here in the Northwest, if you're going to wear a sweater in the summer, you want to have longer sleeves because it's cold. Yeah, some sleeves. So, and also I have enough yarn to do that. So, yeah. And then Kelly, you and I talked about this on the phone about sizing. So the pattern was I could do a 40 inches around the bust line or 44. Well, my bust is 40. So that meant no ease. And I like a sweater with some ease. But a 44 seemed too big.
Right.
So we had a conversation and I decided to make the 40 for the shoulder, and do the shoulder size 40 and then add about 2 inches in the bust line. So I've done that. I added... my gauge is 4.5 stitches to the inch. So that would be 9 stitches, but to be even, I just put in 8 stitches, an extra 8 stitches at the bust line. And so we'll see.
Have you tried it on?
I tried it on and it seems like it's not, really loose, but it's also, I think, when it's washed, it's gonna,
yeah, it kind of relaxes a little bit.
Relaxes, yeah. And also because, and my needles are only 24 inches, so I can't really get it around.
Oh.
Are they 20? No, they're more than 24.
You wouldn't have to do this. You could actually just use waste yarn or another needle, but you could do like I did when I tried on my sweater on the trip and used dental floss. Put your stitches on dental floss and try on your sweater.
These needles must be 36-inch needles. Yeah, anyway, it seems fine. Actually, that might be a good idea to do that just because I'm a little unsure.
Right.
So maybe I'll do that.
Just put it on another. I mean, you could even just put it on. I kind of like sometimes to put it on waste yarn because then you don't have the weight of needles hanging off of it. Yeah. But sometimes I just put it on 2 sets of needles.
2 needles to see, yeah. I could do that, too.
And then, like I said, you could always use dental floss. It's a good thing Robert brings dental floss on every trip.
You didn't have very much left, though, after you used it for...
I did ask him if I could use some, and he had an extra one, so it was good.
Of course, he had an extra one.
Yeah.
The man plans.
Yes.
Anyway, because he knew I'm probably going to lose some of this dental floss, so I better... Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then the only other thing that I did is, I think I talked about this before, that I'd finished projects, but I didn't have anybody to photograph me in my projects. So I had 7 projects that I had not marked as finished on Ravelry and put a photograph. So I just, one day I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to try and figure out how to do this myself. So I took pictures of myself in 7 finished projects, and they're not very good, but at least they're done. And some, like the shawls, I just hung on a hanger.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at your project page right now because I haven't seen all these pictures.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, I updated everything, and I did remember the whole discussion about watching your projects on the live feed. So I did that.
Isn't that cool?
Oh, it's so satisfying.
So now
really
the next level of crazy on this is, wouldn't it be funny to have a thread where everyone posts a video of their project coming through? So not only do you open up a separate tab so you can click it finished and then watch it come across your screen, but you actually have a video of it happening.
Okay, I'm going to do that, Kelly, just for you, because I've not my church, or the easy folded poncho is now sort of done, but I've not posted it on Ravelry. So I think for you, I'm going to try and do that.
Oh, fun.
Next level crazy.
Yes, seriously.
Anyway.
That would be so funny. A thread of everybody's things coming across the... We're crazy. Definitely crazy.
Anyway, so that's it for me on projects. What about you?
Well, I'm sitting here right now weaving in ends on what I'm calling my Shawl of the South. Because I knit this almost exclusively on the trip. I stayed up late last night to finish it, and we've been home. Yesterday was our first full day home. So I stayed up last night to finish it. And so I started, I didn't start it before the trip. I started it while we were on the trip. So this is the Pistachio Ice Cream Shawl by Brenda Castile. And I don't even know if I had this in my plans. I know I had planned to take the 2 yarns. I had, the yarn is Countess Ablaze, and it's an Eccentric Geeks colorway, and it's a Blue Face Leicester. It's a sock yarn, and it's definitely a nice, sturdy, strong sock yarn. I don't usually use scissors to cut my yarn. I usually just break it. And this one is hard to break. I mean, usually a wool yarn, they might be, some of them might be a little harder than others, but this wool yarn feels like it has silk or something in it that makes it hard to break. But it's Blue Face Leicester. I really like the yarn, but I didn't want to use it for socks. And so before I left, I was looking for a second color to use with it, because I knew I wanted to do something that was not just totally wild variegation. It has bright pink and bright green and blue and royal blue and sort of an acidy green and a darker green. It's just very multicolored. And so I had this sort of mystery wool skein of, I think it was sock yarn. I don't know. I had bought it in a 50-gram ball at Stitches quite a while ago. Well, this will tell you how long ago. Back when I didn't realize that skeins came in different sizes. And so I thought, I can make a pair of socks out of a skein of yarn. I've done it before, right? I bought yarn at the yarn shop and made a pair of socks out of a ball of yarn. So I was at Stitches and I saw this yarn and it was so inexpensive. I was like, seriously, I can buy 6 of these, and I can make 6 pair of socks for what it would normally cost me to make 3 pairs of socks. It's like half the price of a normal skein. Well, because it was half the size. So anyway, I dug it out. I was like playing with different colors, and this one I thought went the best, sort of a royal blue color. So that's the color of the. She calls it the main color in the pattern, but it's a garter with eyelets, and it zigzags across the shawl. The pistachio.
I'm looking at it. It's very pretty.
I really like the pattern. And so I like the combination of the yarn. I like the pattern. It went really quickly. It was easy. I think it was pretty easy knitting, although I made a mistake at the very beginning because I didn't read the pattern. But I did not rip it out. So I had looked at it. I had seen it online. This is a very common Kelly mistake. I had looked at it, seen the picture, and I saw this row of double eyelets. Well, that's the border. All those zigzags have single row of eyelets. So when you get to the end of the eyelet row, it says repeat rows blah 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 2 more times. And I thought, oh, okay, this is where I repeat the eyelet rows. And so I repeat the eyelet rows, like never even looked to see which rows those were. No, I was supposed to be repeating the garter stitch. So when I suddenly realized this, I also realized that I did not want to I didn't want to continue to double them because I didn't have enough of the blue. I wasn't sure I'd have enough of the blue. So then I went back to doing single, the way you're supposed to with the blue. I did make a couple of the wedges of the variegated a little bit bigger, by just doing more short rows than it called for. But I finished it last night. I had about a yard of the blue yarn left.
Ooh,
yeah.
Good.
I tried to bind off, actually, with the blue yarn and failed. So I bound off with the variegated yarn. So there's just a small little ridge of variegated at the edge, which I think actually looks kind of cool. So yeah, I'm really happy with it, and it was fun to have a project that was pretty much exclusively knit on the trip. So yeah, my shawl of the South is going to be washed and blocked today.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Thank you. So that's one project that I brought that I worked on. And then the other thing that I brought to work on, and I was actually fairly monogamous, is the lavender honey tea. And I got the entire body of that finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
So it's a quick, I'll tell you, it's a quick knit, I think. And I think the reason it's one of those addictive ones, how many rows? I don't know. 6 rows, I think. The little lace motif, the little lavender flower thing is about 6 rows. And then there's some rows in between. And so you're in the middle of the lace and you think, I'll just do a couple more rows to finish this. And then once you get done with that, then you have these stockinette rows and you think, this is just smooth sailing stockinette, so I'll just do the stockinette part. And then you're done with the stockinette part and you think, I could just do one more little lace motif. So it was kind of addictive in that way, which I like. That's a perfect kind of pattern for having a lot of time to knit. I didn't, because sometimes you get, I've been knitting, I'm going to stop and I'm just going to look out the window or, just kind of rest a while or something like that. So, but this one just kept me going. And the fit is fantastic. The body fits really well. I mentioned about testing it along the way with dental floss.
Right, yeah.
So, the body fits really well. I haven't started the sleeves yet. I like the neckline. I don't like the neckline quite as well as the neckline on the Havana. Has more of a boat neck. But the neckline does fit well. And then the detail on it is nice. I might make it a little bit longer. once I put the sleeves on, depending on how much yarn I have left and what happens when I block it, I might want it to be just a slight bit longer.
Are you going to, before you, are you just going to put on waste yarn and the bottom and block it?
No, I've bound off.
Oh, that's right, you did bind off.
Yeah, I've bound off. So I'll have to undo it.
Okay.
But if I feel like it's too short, it'll be worth adding a few more rows.
Yeah.
So I just have to find out what happens. It's a cotton and modal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it probably will grow a little bit when I wash it.
Yeah.
In length, because it's heavy. Not a heavy like warm sweater, but the weight of it is heavy. It has some. Well, cotton is heavier, but I think the rayon part of it, that's because I think that's what modal is.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it a little more dense, I think. So, but I like it, and I'm excited to start working on the sleeves.
Yeah, I saw the pictures and it's pretty. Looks nice.
Yeah, I really like it, and I'm glad to have that yarn used.
Mm-hmm.
My third T-shirt of the summer.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, I'm impressed. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess they do take less than a regular sweater because no sleeves and, shorter sleeves, I guess, is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
No button bands or buttonholes or trying to figure out where to put the buttons.
Yeah.
No collar band or collar. So they're a little faster that way. But yeah, I'm cooking along.
So Kelly, all this trip knitting, I have to hear about your trip.
Yes, I've been keeping you all in suspense.
Yes.
The trip was really good. It was a lot of fun. First we were in Dallas, and we stayed in Dallas for just 2 nights. But, well, Robert likes fancy, right? Mm-hmm. So he had booked us for 2 nights at the Omni Hotel in Dallas, which it kind of reminded me of when we first stayed in. It was his reunion, like 10-year reunion, 5-year reunion. I can't remember now. Oh, I guess it was his 10-year reunion. We stayed at the Mark Hopkins in San Francisco, which is a fancy hotel. And we go into our room, and we're both like whispering. And then suddenly we start laughing at each other because we're whispering in our hotel room because it was so fancy. But anyway, he booked us there, and it was really nice. I can highly recommend it. And I have to tell you, this is a tip. He says to me, "I'm going to ask for an upgrade when we check in." I'm like, "Oh, God." Okay. He likes to negotiate stuff, and I hate it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not coming up to the front then. You're just going to wait in the car. I'm just going to lurk in the background because I don't want to be part of this. It just makes me really uncomfortable. And he's like, that's just dumb to be uncomfortable. You just ask, and if they can do it, they do it. So he asked for an upgrade, and we got on the 20th floor. Mm-hmm. And then which was beautiful, overlooking the downtown. I mean, just really nice. And then on the way back, we stayed in Dallas again before we took the plane home, and he did the same thing. And when he tried to call on the phone to make the reservation, they wouldn't do it. But
an upgrade,
right? He asked for a certain thing, and she told him the price, and he said, "Well, I was looking to pay what I paid before," and no, we don't have that. We have these other rooms. They're on like the 5th through the 10th floor or something like that. Anyway, so he just went ahead and booked that because he didn't want to pay the higher price, and then did again the same thing when he got to the front desk. We ended up on the top floor of the hotel on the 23rd floor for actually a lower price than he had paid for the like $10 a night lower than what he had paid for the first 2 nights. So yeah, good tip. I will never do it. I can't imagine I won't say never. but I can't imagine myself ever doing that. But he did it, and it was great. It worked. They had a room. They have to have something available, but anyway, they'd rather have the nicer rooms full than not, I guess. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
So,
cool.
Anyway, so we stayed at the Omni. The first day in Dallas, he really wanted to see the 6th floor museum, which is at the building that was the book depository where the Kennedy assassination took place. So we walked down there, and first we walked around outside, and there's people out there, conspiracy theorist people who have done a lot of research and studying, and they're hawking their publication, and they're talking, they talk to you about what they think, and they've put like an X. They've put like X's on the street to show where the car was when the first shot happened and where the car was when the second shot happened. And then there's people, and Robert did this too. I mean, this is a main street that takes you out of the downtown and onto the freeway. And there's people standing on the X's taking pictures. And Robert did it too. He went and stood on the X, and from the X, I think he took a picture of the window where the shot came from, because he was like so surprised at how close it was. Anyway, it was kind of funny because there's all these people, and they're all pointing and standing in the middle of the street taking pictures and stuff.
So the locals know just to drive around these people.
I
Right?
guess. I don't know. I guess so. You just always have to look for people in the middle of the street in that area.
Yeah.
So then we went into the museum, and the average time in the museum, it said, was like 2 hours. And I think we were there for 4.
Oh, my goodness.
Robert was just fascinated. And they have these headsets that you wear, and they talk to you and my headset battery went out, and I was actually kind of glad, because I'd rather just read a few things and move on. So it was way more interesting and moving than I thought it would be. I mean, it was not my thing. I thought, I'll go, it'll be interesting. But it was the thing that Robert really wanted to do. Kind of the equivalent of me wanting to go to the botanical gardens or a yarn shop, right?
Right.
And so, but it was very moving, and I have to say, it did make me kind of sad about how our society has changed. I mean, I know that Kennedy has been sort of like romanticized, idolized. And that's much easier to happen to someone who dies young, and you don't see you don't see the culmination of all their actions.
Right.
But just to see and to hear in the historical record of how horrified and sad people were about his assassination, and to think about the way things are today, where you have these kinds of violent things happening more often, I guess, maybe. That's why, I don't know. But it's not the same kind of reaction. Right. It's hard to imagine that kind of national outpouring of grief for anyone in this day and age. For any one person. I don't know. I mean, I guess September 11th was sort of like that. For our like generation, that was the moment, right? That I remember where I was. I remember everything about that day. But anyway, even that wasn't quite the same. I don't think. I mean, I know I'm just looking back at it, and I'm seeing the vision from the museum, but. But it was kind of sad to think that kind of innocence, maybe, of the country is over. That, I mean, it's shocking, but I don't think it would be as... no violent act is as shocking anymore.
Well, it's our movies are violent. There's shootings every day. I mean,
Right.
seems like.
Right.
I mean, some are publicized, some are not publicized. So,
Yeah, it was just a more...
so we're a little kind of immune to it. What's not immune? Numb to it, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's a lot harder for people to be horrified. No, it was just very moving. I just didn't think I'd be affected quite the way that I was by that. But it was really interesting. And then we had really good food in Dallas.
Well, I have to say, you posted pictures of the food. I know you had tacos, because you posted a picture of the tacos, and you had also for breakfast you had the huevos rancheros.
Oh yes, that's what I had in
and,
Dallas. Yeah,
and they all looked good. And I think all the food you posted pictures of on your trip looked pretty darn good.
We did not. Yeah, Robert posted pictures of my food. So, and kept people in our family updated about whether I was hungry or not, because as he says, I get very mean when I'm not fed.
It's just self-preservation, trying to keep you fed,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. So, yeah. So, but there was a guy in Dallas at one of the restaurants, and he said, while you're here, we were telling him about our trip, and he said, well, if you're hungry at all while you're here on this trip, it's your own fault. And he was right. He was definitely right. So yeah, our whole first full day that we had in Dallas was spent on Kennedy. And that's another thing that's kind of interesting. I think they said this in one of the exhibits about how for a very long time after the assassination, that was the thing that people sort of identified with Dallas.
Right.
Which,
yeah.
how sad. It just, yeah. And I guess then that's not really so true anymore, but there's a memorial there too that we saw that was built. I think it was built a little bit later. But yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So that was our day in Dallas. It was all JFK. Because we spent so much time in that museum. I was finally done and just waited for him.
I have to ask though, did Robert change his thoughts about the assassination? Does he follow any conspiracy theories now?
No. He started out being a one shooter believer, and the museum did not change his mind. Okay. So yeah. But it is interesting, all the investigation. I mean, that continued into the late 70s, I think. I don't remember all the details that I read in the museum, but I remember being surprised. It's like, really? They were still investigating this idea that it might have been the grassy knoll. So he did say, I guess one of the arguments that people make is that, that shot, he would have had to have been a really super great shot to make that from the window. And Robert stood in the middle of the street and took a picture back at the window. And he's hunted, and so he's familiar with shooting. And he said, you wouldn't have had to been that good of a shot. It was not that far. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay. Good. Well,
yeah. So that was the start of our trip, and I promise I won't give blow by blow details of the whole rest of it. But the next place that we went was to Texarkana, and that's pretty much where we stayed, our home base. We spent the most time in a motel in Texarkana. In the northern part where Highway 30 comes in.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. Most of our vacation was spent in a motel in Texarkana. Woohoo!
Yeah, true. I think there were a lot of people who were kind of surprised that we were spending our vacation in Texarkana. It was not a tourist hotel. There were people there who were at a conference, or there were some people who were maybe traveling through. I think maybe it's on the way to other places. So, yeah, we were in the north part of town, but we went into the main part of Texarkana. This was really interesting. I had been on the search for a farmer's market because I wanted to get some fruit, like peaches or something. And we stopped at the Dallas Farmer's Market, and there really wasn't much there at the time that we were there. Even though said it was open, a lot of the booths and stalls were just kind of getting going. And so we had to get on the road, so we left. So when we were in Texarkana on Saturday, and I saw that there was a farmer's market, so we went to it. Well, it turns out we got there just about the time that everyone was leaving, but the farmer's market is in the south part of Texarkana, their old downtown, and is really is interesting, but also really kind of sad. Is a super extreme example, at least in my experience, of what happens when a downtown area dies. We were walking around in the area looking for the farmer's market and also looking for this museum of regional history that was there. And all of a sudden, Robert and I both noticed all of the buildings were empty, deserted. Some of them were boarded up. Some of them were just they were just deserted. And I don't know, it was kind of at a certain point, it became kind of creepy to me. I'm used to being I've been in sort of the bad part of a downtown area. We lived in kind of a bad part of Spokane when I was younger, and I walked through areas in Seattle and in San Francisco, but there's usually people there, and maybe transients, homeless, or there's people on their way somewhere else. This was totally deserted, and suddenly we realized that this was not just one single area. The entire downtown has been emptied out. And when we got to the farmer's market, a man came and talked to us, and it turns out he was a city planner for the city of Texarkana. So he was telling us, so Robert asked him some questions about the downtown, and so he was telling us about, they have, kind of revitalization plans, and there's an old hotel that I guess within the next 2 weeks, they were going to close on a sales deal. Somebody's going to buy it and fix it up. But what a risk. I mean, I know how long in Salinas they've talked about revitalizing the downtown, and it's now sort of coming to fruition. Yeah. But that's just 2 blocks of one street. Our downtown, Old Town in Salinas is small. And this was, literally blocks and blocks and blocks of empty nothingness. There would be, there'd be an occasional business, the museum was there, and then there was a restaurant that he recommended that was really good, Pecan Point, that we ate at, and a theater. So there was one block where they had a few things strung in a row. But wow. Yeah. That was kind of amazing. And it had all moved north toward where we were staying. The highways kind of go around Texarkana, and that whole section of town. But 2 good restaurants we stayed. we ate at Pecan Point a couple of times, and we had breakfast in a locals diner. I can't remember the name of it. Carol and Sue's or something like that. 2 women's names, but it was definitely all locals at that place. So yeah, Pecan Point was a sort of trendy hipster place. So I hope that I'm kind of interested in following what happens, see what happens with the Grimm Hotel. That's the name of the hotel, and what happens with it, because, but what a job! So overwhelming. I can't even imagine revitalizing that downtown. But yet, what else do you do? Do you just go in and bulldoze it all down? Yeah, and that sounds horrible.
Yeah, I don't know. There's sections of Detroit. I know that, I don't know about the downtown area, but I read an article once in the paper that sections of neighborhoods where there was all these abandoned homes, that they actually just were bulldozing them down to create green spaces. Because it was better to...
Yeah.
They were such a blight that their feeling was better just to get rid of them and condense the neighborhood. But anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it would probably be very difficult to stay optimistic and positive in this situation for a city planner. Like how... Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was young and very passionate. So I'd love to see what he's talking about happen. But it seems kind of far-fetched to me. He said that the hospital moved north, and when the hospital moved north, that sort of started the exodus. I have a feeling that wasn't all that long ago. I have a feeling that it actually started longer ago than that, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. What do you do? Just what a challenge that would be. So, and I mean, literally not something I've ever seen before. But but I know there are other places like that where that kind of thing has happened. And it's not like there wasn't a community. There were people and neighborhoods and businesses all along the highway in that area up north, but just not in that old downtown area at all. It was kind of eye-opening, I have to say. It was really eye-opening to see what can happen to a city. And not a small city. At least not small in land space. I'm not sure how many people it has. I think it actually has only a little bit more of a population than Salinas, but that might be wrong.
But still, it's a larger city, though. It's not a small town with 1,000 people or something. It's a big city.
And I shouldn't say because I can't remember now. It might be bigger than Salinas. It seems like it would be bigger than Salinas. But
Interesting.
Yeah. Lots of open space or empty space in the area that we were in. So northeast Texas and southwest Arkansas, super empty. You'd be on the roads, and oh my gosh, the highways are huge. The roads are huge. And they have the nicest rest stops. Well, that was in Louisiana, but I mean, these big, massive, numbers of lanes for no drivers. So that's kind of nice. If you don't want traffic, that's the place to go. There's very little traffic. But the roads are really big and nice, and they were doing road work. It's like, why are they doing road work? There's nobody on these roads.
We need to take a clue from them here in Washington State. So then where did you go after Texarkana then?
So while we were in Texarkana, we went up to Lockesburg, and we just kind of poked around. It was on a Sunday, and so we ended up having Sunday supper with all of the people coming out of church. I can tell you there are a lot of churches in that part of Arkansas, too. We did discover some of them are not in operation because there aren't people to support the congregation anymore. But yeah, a lot of churches. So we went to Arkansas. That was on a Sunday, into Lockesburg, and we had a meal. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, meatloaf. It was a buffet at Nadine's.
Okay, that actually sounds really good, I have to say.
And it was a locals place. I mean, it was, in fact, is one of those places. We opened the door, and there was a table right at the door, like a round table in the empty space, like where you go up and pay. It was a little intimidating when we first walked in, just because the door was like right on top of their table practically, and we were definitely out of the norm, and got some stares, but everybody was super nice. I mean, that was another thing about the trip, is like there is an excessive amount of politeness, like more politeness than I've ever seen it was really, really amazing how gracious and polite people were. But anyway, we definitely got some looks in this restaurant, because we were not the usual crowd, and it was definitely a regulars place. So we had lunch, and then after that we went and saw cemeteries, and we ended up at this one cemetery, and there were some people there, and we happened to start talking. Well, come to find out, we had just missed it. They had just finished, but they have this thing called homecoming. And it's the Cemetery Association, and they have, basically it's an annual event where all of the people who have loved ones in the cemetery all get together. And they've been doing this for, 45 years, something like that. So when they found out that Robert had relatives in the cemetery, and then they also found out that his relatives were Locks, who had founded Lockesburg, they invited us to come back next year. The first Sunday in June every year, they have this homecoming, and it's a big picnic, and they have a music program, and people get together like on the Saturday before to clean up the graves in the cemetery, and people bring flowers to put on their families' headstones and things. So yeah, they were really excited to meet us, and in fact, the church had been closed and they wanted us to see it. So they actually called the guy who had the keys to the church, and he turned around and came back and opened up the church for it.
Very cool, yeah.
Super, super nice, yeah. So we may be going back next year so that we can participate in this homecoming at the cemetery. And there was a woman there who said her son or her daughter had announced to them that they were getting married on the first Saturday. She gave them the date, and it was the first Saturday in June. And she said, "Well, that won't work because that's homecoming." and she said, "No, but we're getting married on Saturday." And she's like, "But that won't work because Sunday's homecoming, and we've never missed one.
Yeah.
We've never missed one. Your grandfather's not going to approve." So anyway, they postponed their honeymoon so they could come from where they got married to this homecoming. And then from the homecoming, they left to go on their honeymoon. So I've never heard of such a thing, but I thought it was really cool. So it would be fun. It would be fun to go back just to participate in that. And it was just luck that we happened to be there on the day that they were having this. A little bit unfortunate that we arrived there as it was ending. That it had already ended and they were just cleaning up, packing up the last of the chairs and things. But just really cool. So, and then we were in Lockesburg a little bit later in the week and got to the library and met the librarian and asked, some questions. And she was really funny because she was sort of acting a little strange, kind of very nice, super excited to show us all these different things and, to tell us about the town and all that. But there was just something a little bit odd about her demeanor. And finally she said, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stop looking at your husband." Because she had done research on the history, and so she was, familiar with the three brothers that founded Lockesburg and saw the same resemblance that I saw. She said, "It's just remarkable, the resemblance." So we didn't walk around town because there really isn't a town anymore, seeing people that looked like him. But we did meet a couple of people who saw the resemblance, and so that was kind of cool.
Very cool.
And then we went into a museum, and the same thing. And they wanted to take his picture, which was cool.
And how did Robert feel about all this?
So, he thought that was a little weird. He didn't. He wasn't really expecting to be sort of a minor celebrity. At the museum, there was a small group of children going through, and the woman who was, we had gone into the room where they had the genealogy information, but she called him out to take his picture, and then this group of children came in, and so while they were there, she said, "Oh, and you know what? See this man over here? He's the great great grandson of this man who founded the town." That was kind of interesting.
Because Robert doesn't really like attention like that, so yeah,
no,
it's very cool.
No,
I think it's cool, but
yeah, he was uncomfortable, but I thought it was really cool. So that was fun, yeah. But like I said, there really wasn't a town left. Most of the buildings are gone. There was a hardware store, and we went into the hardware store to see if we could get some information. And Robert was on this search. He wanted to buy like a hat or a mug or a shirt or something for his dad that said Lockesburg. But of course, I mean, pick a rural town.
Well, it's not a tourist town, so they're not going to have touristy things, right?
Exactly. And yeah, so anyway, he didn't have any luck, and people kind of looked at him strangely. But we did get a chance to talk to the older couple who ran the hardware store, and they knew a lot of the history of the town and told us some stories and stuff, so that was fun. Yeah, so we had, it wasn't at all like I expected. Lockesburg was not at all like I expected, but it was really cool and very interesting, and that whole area of Arkansas is so lush. I mean, just like if you stood still, you could be overtaken by nature. That's how it, and not like I think of the swamp as being like that, like tropical places, and this is not either of those things. But yeah, I said something. In fact, I said something to somebody about how lush it was, and he said, "Yeah, if you miss mowing, you're in trouble." So it was an interesting landscape. Lots of trees, pine trees, and hickory, and I don't know what else, but big, lots of trees, very rural. And then we saw Civil War battle sites, and basically, so they're state parks, but basically it would be a picnic bench and a historical marker with a little bit of information. Like not even an outhouse or a pit toilet or anything, just a little marker that you read about the battle. So we saw 3 or 4 of those in Arkansas. But then we did go to Washington State Park, which is actually a town. Some historical society preserved the buildings, and so that was really interesting. Yeah, so that was the sort of dead relatives part of the tour. And we did see a lot of gravestones, and I found everything that I wanted to find, except there's one that had the correct name and the correct year of death. It was in the right vicinity area of the state, but it had the wrong birth year by like several years, like maybe 20 years. And so that was weird. I don't know if it's the right gravestone with a mistake. Does that happen?
Well, I don't know, but you can't recarve it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. So that's kind of a mystery. And if that's not it, then we never found one of the graves, which seems weird. Everybody else's grave is there. So it's just one of the mysteries of doing this kind of work, I guess.
Oh, I was just going to ask, because before you left, there was, I think one of our listeners had talked about there's that place where you can dig for diamonds. Did you do that?
Yeah. No, we didn't get there. We didn't do a lot of things. You know how Robert was worried that we were going to have too much time on our hands, and we weren't going to know what to do with ourselves. Well, we actually ran out of time to do a lot of the things because there's no place to stay. Like in Lockesburg, right? So we weren't staying in Lockesburg. We were staying in Texarkana. So then it was like a 45-minute drive into Lockesburg every time we went in there. Or like if we went back into Texas, that was like a 20-minute drive. So there was a lot of driving. And the Civil War things were all in different places, so that took quite a while. That took a whole day to do. And then going to Washington State Park took a whole day to do. So we ended up not doing quite a few things. Like I never got to a yarn shop.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So part of the problem with the yarn shop is it wasn't open on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Like, that seems strange to me.
That seems strange to me, too, but...
Yeah. So the yarn garden in Texarkana is the one that I wanted to go to, and we were trying to get into all the towns on weekdays so that we could, go to a museum, go to the library, those kinds of services. Yeah. So the only other thing that I want to talk about, I don't want to go on too long about this, but it was very interesting being in the South. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in Vicksburg. And we went to the military history museum site. It's basically the battlefield where Vicksburg was under siege, and they've got the battle lines marked. It's a big place. There's a cemetery there, and there's a gunboat, a river gunboat. And I mentioned this about Dallas, to have your whole city's history, at least in the eyes of outsiders. Mm-hmm. Your whole city's name is about the assassination. Right. And Vicksburg, we went there because of this Civil War military park is what it's called. And to have your whole city's
sort of identity is
based on a battle in the Civil War. Mm-hmm. It was an interesting thing to think about. And it was also interesting, it kind of hit home to me when there was a guy in the bed and breakfast who did the tour of the house after breakfast. And so we went around and we did the tour, and we were all from the North. But he was explaining, about the history of the house, and it was the Duff Green mansion, and the mansion had been made into a hospital. The Duff Green had wanted to preserve not only his home, but the homes of his family members from the bombing or the shelling or whatever they called it back then. And so he had volunteered his home to be a hospital. Oh,
because if it was a hospital, then it would not be...
Right, because it had...
bombed or burned or whatever.
Right, because it had both Union and Confederate soldiers in it.
Oh, okay.
Although he did say they put the Union soldiers on the third floor, which was the top floor of the house. Anyway, but he was talking about the history of the house, and there were several times where it was almost as though he had to apologize for being proud of his history and of the house's history. And he was like Mark in that he really was interested in the house and the house's history and the people who had lived in the house and the houses in the neighborhood. He was very interested in all of that. And there were a couple of times where he actually, I think felt like he needed to explain himself about having pride. And I thought, that was really kind of eye-opening to me. We have this idea of a place, but what is it like to live there when the rest of the world's idea of your place, like your home, your land, your heart, is sort of identified with something that you don't, I don't know. It was just really eye-opening. I don't even know how to describe it exactly.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. Is like, especially here we live in the North, and there is a tendency to look at the South that what the South was fighting for was wrong, so therefore they were all wrong. But the thing is, and they were somehow bad. And in our current climate, I don't want to be political, but in our current climate, they are taking down. There's a lot of it's a sort of a hot topic now. They're taking down statues in the South, and I was reading in the paper that they were actually doing it at night, and the workers had to wear bulletproof vests, and they covered their faces so they wouldn't be identified. And it must be difficult to reconcile. This is our history. We're proud of our history.
Right.
But there's the rest of the world views it in a very negative way. And maybe right or wrong, you can take your side and whether it was right or wrong, but how do you reconcile our pride in our ancestry and knowing that perhaps some of the things that we were fighting for today are not considered right or correct by the rest of the country and the rest of the world, and a lot of people living in the South too, probably.
Well, and that is so one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I got the feeling that, and I thought about this, like, do I feel this way? It's like you can't be proud of anything because of, not that it wasn't a big thing, but because of this one thing. Like, you can't be proud of your history or your land or your people or your culture.
Right.
Because of the Civil War that happened in the 1860s.
Right. Yes.
I had never quite thought of it that way, but he really did seem kind of apologetic.
Yeah.
But very proud of where he's lived. His family's lived there for generations. And a lot of the places we went, people had lived there for generations in the same area. And that's something. That's really something.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It just, I guess I don't need to say more about it, but I found it really eye-opening and very interesting, and I really enjoyed the trip. And I would like to go back. I do think I would like to go back. Vicksburg was really interesting. I would love to do the 23-day down the Mississippi River boat. I've never thought I wanted to do a cruise, but we saw people who were on that, and of course they were all retired people, mostly probably Civil War buffs, which I do not consider myself to be. I mean, it's fine. It was interesting. It was more interesting, again, like the Kennedy Museum, the Civil War, the day we spent in Vicksburg at the military history park was more interesting than I thought it was going to be. But boy, I just think it would be so interesting to go down the Mississippi River from Minneapolis, I think is where it starts.
Yeah, it starts up in Minnesota,
all the way to New Orleans. I just think that would be the most interesting trip. And you would see, I don't know, maybe you would see it. You maybe wouldn't experience it the same way, but that just sounded fun to me. Robert's not so sure. 23
Well,
days.
I have to admit, I've always kind of wanted to see parts of the South, but other things have called me instead, but it's a big part of our history. And
it's just a beautiful, beautiful countryside. Just really, really pretty countryside. And the weather I thought was nice. It was warm, but like in Mississippi, there was a nice breeze from the river in Vicksburg. I'm sure it gets worse as the weather heats up in the summer. But
and I think that's one thing that has sort of always kind of stopped me is the thought of the humidity, because how I am in heat and humidity, and so that's always kind of stopped me. But
the food is good. Grits.
I know, it looks pretty good, I have to say.
I am a convert to grits. Oh my gosh, I love grits.
Well, the food looked really good, but it also looked like it was a lot of butter. And, but still, after 2 weeks of it, probably.
Well, and the choices I was making, right? If I wasn't a tourist trying to experience everything that I had never experienced, I might not have ordered what I ordered. But yeah. Anyway, it was a fun trip, and I guess I should stop going on about it. It's now been quite a few minutes of just talking about my trip, so...
Well, I will just say I had a little trip, nothing like yours, but my brother booked a house on the Washington coast, a place called Seabrook. And so we went there Sunday and came home yesterday. And,
all right.
And it was kind of fun. It's a planned community, but it was totally up Mark's alley, where they're all designed to look like old houses, and very nice. I have to say, really very nice. And so it was fun. I posted some pictures on Instagram also of Enzo on the beach, because we brought Enzo and we went to the beach every day, and that was just really nice. I love going to the beach and the Washington coast. Well, any coast is fabulous, and so this was just a really nice trip. And but because it was his vacation, I said, "You pick the house you want. It's your trip." And so he had to find a house that he liked, also that would allow dogs. So we ended up in a house that sleeps 10 people. There was just 2 of us. Oh my God, it's so funny. So it was 3 stories. So, like the living area was on the main floor. And then the second floor, there was 3 bedrooms, the master bedroom and 2 other bedrooms. And so he took the master bedroom with a huge, it's one of those houses that you see on HGTV or the master bedroom like HGTV, where a huge master bedroom with a huge king size bed, but still tons of room for all kinds of furniture. Mm-hmm. Then now you go into a bathroom where then they have the 2 sinks, a huge jacuzzi tub, a separate room for the shower, and a separate room for the toilet. For one person in that room. Because I said to him in the king size bed, I said, "Where'd you sleep?" He said, "In the middle." And then I went up on the 3rd floor. Was I had a bedroom with a king size bed, full bathroom, and then another room that was like a little sitting area, but it also had a hide-a-bed with a queen-size bed, I think, in there. And I had 2 TVs.
Oh, my God.
In my area.
Oh,
anyway.
I have to tell you something about the hotel in Dallas.
Oh, yes.
There was a TV in the bathroom mirror.
Oh, my goodness. How does that work?
I don't know.
So when you turn it off, when you're not using the TV, it just looks like a mirror?
Yes. There's a little darker part of the mirror, but it's just the mirror.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
So kind of cool, too. Anyway.
So you don't have to miss any TV when you have to go to the bathroom.
So funny. Well, anyway, because it was Mark's vacation, I let him pick the house, and then we go to pack up the car, and I think he brought 10 candlesticks, brass candlesticks. Do you know how heavy brass candlesticks are, especially when you have 10 of them? The car was a little low in the back. Candles for all of that. I think he had 4 single malt scotches.
Oh, my gosh.
A bottle of gin, and his gourmet tonic water that he buys, and we had 3 bottles of red wine for 2 people.
So, well, it's sort of like bringing 5 projects when you go for a weekend.
Now, we drank a bottle and a half, I think, in 4 nights. So we didn't drink that much. We had wine with dinner, and then the scotch. And we didn't drink all the scotch either. We just had. I think I had a gin and tonic the first night, and then we just would sit out on the porch overlooking the water if it was nice, and have our scotch, but in sampled scotches. So that was kind of fun. But and the weather was pretty good. The last day, the day we left Thursday, pouring down rain. So raining so hard, and it's that kind of that rain that doesn't even seem to be coming from one direction. It's coming from every direction. Mm-hmm. So we're loading up the car, and I'm like, my pants are wet. I had my rain jacket, but you're leaning over to get things into the car, so my whole bottom was like wet when I got in the car. Anyway, so it was a fun trip. It was a nice little break, and it was fun to have the dog on the beach.
Yeah, that's really nice.
So anyway, that was my little adventure while you were gone.
All right.
And then the last thing I have to tell you is I bought a piano.
Ooh.
And I have to I'm gonna make it because we've been going on a long time, so I'll make it very quick. But as you know, I've been taking piano lessons, and I have a keyboard, but it's not it's a cheap one we got for Ben when he was taking music lessons, and so it's not the full 88 keys, and they're not weighted. And so I've been planning all this time. I keep thinking to myself, I'm going to buy myself a nice keyboard. And my music teacher wants me to get a piano. I'm like, no, I don't have room for a piano. So I was running an errand, and I'm coming home, and you know how I always tell you I get this call to go to the Goodwill. And I'm like, I am not going to the Goodwill. You have no business going to the Goodwill. Do not go to the Goodwill. But I thought, the next thing I know, I'm in the parking lot of the Goodwill. And I go in there, and I hear someone playing a piano. And I often do, because I always have pianos at the Goodwill, but they're always really bad shape and kind of expensive, too. And I hear this someone playing the piano and everything. I see there's a woman over there, glance over, don't think anything of it. And I'm walking around, and all of a sudden, I come down an aisle, and go around the corner, and who's there but Kaya, my music teacher. And I said to her, were you playing that piano? And she said, yes. She said, you have to come look at this piano. So you know where this is going. I now have a piano. So I bought the piano. But it is a nice piano. It sounds really good. And it's not huge. It's an upright, but I shouldn't speak to this because I don't know that much about pianos. But I think it's maybe a spinet or there's different sizes. I don't know what the names are, but it's an upright, but it's short. It's not super tall.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, $19.99. So I got it for $20. But
yes,
it doesn't fit in the back of my car, obviously.
Right.
So this is on a Friday. I think it was Friday at 4 or 5 o'clock when I run into her and I buy this piano. And so I can't do anything about it, and I have no one to help me move it either, right? So I go home and I just go on the U-Haul website and I reserve a van. There's no trucks, like box trucks, so I get a van. And so I don't know why I thought a piano would fit in the back of a van, but I go pick up the van, go to the Goodwill, which is just a few blocks from the U-Haul place. There's no way it's going to fit in there. So I bring the U-Haul back, and here in Seattle we have a place called Handy Andy, and they have all kinds of equipment. It's a little rough, the equipment, but anyway, I call them, and they had a box truck with a lift, or not a lift, but a ramp.
Okay, yeah.
So I go meet my brother meets me at the Goodwill, and all these guys from the Goodwill come out. And, well, I have to say it's funny. I go in there and I say, I'm here to, get that piano, because they knew what I was doing. So he said, oh, you're back. He said, we can get it in that box truck. But he said, I don't think I can move it just myself. He said, I think I'm going to go get the Beast. And I said, is the Beast a person or a machine? Like, is it like some heavy-duty power hand truck? He said, oh, no, it's a person. So he comes out with the Beast, some guy who's big. And so there was 6 of us, I think, had to roll it up this ramp to get it into the truck.
Wow.
Well, of course, then we're there, and my brother sees 2 love seats, which he buys and throws in the back of the truck for our friend Gary. So this whole day, and you understand, too, this was Saturday, and I'm leaving Sunday morning to go to the beach. I haven't packed or done anything or bought anything for the beach. So we get all involved in this whole thing. Gary meets us at the house. We roll it down the ramp, but we can't get it into the house, so the piano's now sitting in the garage because I can't get it in the house. I'll get back to that. Then we have to go up to Gary's house, drop off the sofas, take his old sofas to the Goodwill. They won't take them, so we have to, because they're in such bad shape, we had to bring them back to his house and put them out. You put them in the alley by the garbage can, and then you call the city, and they'll come and pick them up.
Oh.
So we had to do that, or he has to take care of that part. Then I returned the truck, I think, and then I went home, and by now it's like 5:30 or 6. But anyway, here's the thing. I have to call a piano mover to get the piano into the house. So my $20 piano now is...
Oh.
20. I think it ended with tax. Everything was like $30 for the U-Haul thing, which didn't work. Another $60 for the big box truck, and now I have to call a piano mover. So much for good deals at the Goodwill.
Oh my gosh.
But I have a real piano.
That's nice.
So I'm very excited about it, and I just think it's one of those things. Like this sounds all kind of woo woo, but it's like I mean, it's so weird that I have to go. I'm going to go to the Goodwill today.
Every time it happens.
Every time I get the call, yeah. And then my piano teacher's there.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like the universe is telling me I need to buy this piano, so I bought this piano.
Because you needed her to tell you if it was worth buying.
Right, because I don't really know. And so we were at the Goodwill, and she started taking the whole thing kind of apart, like opening the top, and she was spinning it, looking at it, and she said it's in really good shape. All the pedals work, all the keys work. It's actually in tune. I still think when they move it, they may have to check it to, because I think every time you move a piano, especially how it was being moved, because, and it was a little rough too, the way it was moved. They're like, well, and like they wanted to lay it on the back. I'm like, no, you're not doing that, because I think that probably cannot be good for a piano upright to lay it on its back. It can't be good for it. I have no
idea, yeah.
I don't know, but I can't imagine that that's good for it. So anyway, so I now have a piano, but it's also a little bit of an albatross because I have to figure out how to get it in the house.
Oh, no.
So anyway, but exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah.
Keep us posted on your piano saga, the piano project. Yeah. You can put it as a project page on Ravelry.
Yeah, right. Maybe I will. Anyway. So, anything else we need to talk about?
Well, we're headed to Black Sheep. Mm-hmm. And I'll insert a little bit at the beginning of the podcast about our meetup.
Yes, we have to figure out because we will not have the trailer this year.
Right.
So we need to figure out where we're going to meet.
Yeah, and I'll put that at the beginning. And meanwhile, if anybody who is going and wants to be able to be in communication with us, let us know where you are or whatever. Or say, where are you? Just message me on Ravelry, and I'll give you my phone number.
Yeah.
You can text me. We can be in communication that way.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then I think we'll say goodbye. It sounds like you had a great trip. I'm really glad to hear about it. And I did look at the pictures that you're posting on Instagram, but it's fun to hear about the trip too. So.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't actually posted any on my on mine, so I'll have to put some up so people can see. Yeah. Robert was posting the pictures for the most part while we were gone. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, once again, welcome home.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.